Thank you very much. Question number 4. It is widely accepted that individuals with autism do not have empathy. Many of us, however, disagree with this thought. Why do you think that the myth of lack of empathy still exists? And can a culture truly exist without empathy? Lars?
Well, this ultimately goes back to theory of mind that often our experience is somewhat different from that of others. We may have certain difficulty in relating to the experiences of certain persons. And, sometimes we have profound differences. It's amazing to me, intellectually, I know that some people actually prefer this awful thing called change and variety. It's very difficult for me to relate to the fact that that's actually something done by real people. But this comes with a flip side. Many times the parents of people on the spectrum who come and talk to us and often can get good feedback. Those of us in the spectrum, for example, are often keenly aware of certain sensory overload that somebody may experience. We're much more sensitive to that, even though we may not have the exact same challenges. We know to watch for certain overloads, and many times, again, also we can relate to the process of other people on the spectrum. Many times we have to think more about the experiences of others, so it may not come as intuitively, but we may reach a deeper result. One of my skills is coming up with win-win deals. And that may have come about in part because I've sort of been forced to analyze more systematically what other people's interests are and perhaps systematize things a bit more.
About the empathy, when they ask, why do you think that myth of lack of empathy still exists? One of the reasons I think is because of the fact that we don't always reflect on our face and body language and referencing in a way that you might do that. So because you don't see what you think we should mirror doesn't mean that it doesn't exist within us. For me, I actually overly feel everything around me. I just don't know what to do with those sensations or to identify them by a name, but I tend to overly feel, and it can actually make me quite sick from feeling everybody's pain as intensely as if it were my own. I just can't reflect it on my face and outward, but I do find outlets through my poetry and my visual means of PowerPoints and things to express my true sense of empathy and humanity. And then one of the first times that I actually felt empathy at the same time another person is that a very special friend from my church who has been a strong advocate and voice for me in my church was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. And I went to her house after she had some chemo and has lost her hair and things. And she started to share something and began to cry. And then it was the first time in my life that I was actually able to feel it so powerfully that I wanted to search out her face to see what else I might be able to pick up from her emotional states. I tend to oftentimes pick up emotional states and energies from people, and it can make me feel very positive or very negative. I just don't always understand what that energy is by its name. I also wanted to share that because of those energies, it also causes my bodies to react and respond, maybe not in words, but it might come out in behaviors, or sometimes if I overly feel a sensation, it might, for example, if I'm overly happy about something, then I might start to feel very happy, but it becomes pervasively happy to the point that it starts to turn yucky feeling inside, and that causes me to start showing agitation and overwhelmed responses that you pick up that you might think that I'm upset and angry, when actually I'm just so overly happy I don't know how to tone down the emotional state surging in. Yes.
Sondra and I are taking turns on fly patrol here, coordinating who's speaking and who's watching the fly. I wrote another poem for this answer. I think the myth of lack of empathy still exists because when world people look at us, no empathy, disconnected from reality, no theory of mind, no feelings, is some of what they conclude when applying the yardstick measure their neurology bestows upon them. Please realize your theory of my mind is your reality, not mine. It's not my truth, even though it is the way I look to you. Please know I feel for you, so I'll cut you some slack, knowing that you are merely describing what you see when you look at me through the rose-colored glasses of your own neurology. So why do I think your myth still exists about my lack of empathy? Only because you, just like me, are doing the best you can, surmising what you see, drawing logical conclusions based on your own neurology. What is really true for me concerning empathy is that I have it too abundantly. My felt experience being way too much for me. As a child, I had no way to filter it down, to make it less intense. Only a black and white, all or nothing switch. All equal death, so nothing I chose. To negate too much empathy. Your tiny feelings magnified inside of me. Too much empathy. So wisely I blocked it. If I hadn't, I would have been so overwhelmed as not to be able to remain fitted inside of my skin. Today, my black and white choices of all or nothing have expanded to include gray in the middle, degrees of intensity, now able to be shown. So now today, when you look at me, you will sometimes see my empathy. More likely on days I am well regulated, able to be masterfully in control of my own destiny, sliding the gauge of empathy intensity so as not to overwhelm myself with a magnified experience of each of you inside my skin all at once. So the answer to why I think the myth of my lack still exists is that some people inflexibly insist their theory of me and my mind is a truth they can measure by using a 3D NT yardstick. It's preposterous, and yet they keep measuring.